It was a quiet Monday morning in the small coastal town of Puerto Blanco, Spain, a place where the sea breeze mingles with the smell of fresh bread from corner bakeries. Life moved slowly here, especially for the elderly residents who had called this town home for generations. Among them was 87-year-old Maria Santiago, a retired schoolteacher known for her love of gardening and her habit of waving at neighbors from her tiny balcony. On May 5, 2024, the community was shaken by news of her sudden passing. Her family mourned. Arrangements were made. A closed-casket funeral was scheduled for the next day. But just hours before her final farewell, something unimaginable happened. A discovery that turned grief into disbelief and raised questions no one could yet answer. How could someone be declared dead and then be found alive? Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. Maria Santiago had lived in the same sun-faded apartment for over 40 years. Her days followed a comforting rhythm. Early morning walks to the corner cafe for a cup of warm café con leche, afternoons spent tending to her potted roses, and evenings flipping through photo albums filled with memories of her late husband and grown children who now lived hours away. Though age had slowed her steps and sometimes clouded her memory, she remained sharp in spirit, kind, gentle, and always quick with a soft laugh. Neighbors often saw her sitting by the window, a knitted shawl draped over her shoulders, watching the world go by like it was a story still unfolding. No one imagined that the next chapter of her life would be anything but ordinary. But sometimes, life quietly changes course, and when it does, it doesn't always give a warning. Just days before the event that would stun her family, Maria had told a neighbor, "I feel strange lately, like I'm fading." One chilly morning in late April, Maria didn't come out for her usual coffee. The cafe owner, Ramon, who always saved her a seat by the window, noticed her absence. At first, he thought she might be feeling tired or had gone to visit family. But the next day passed, then the next, and still no sign of her. Her daughter, Elena, who lived 2 hours away, tried calling but got no answer. Concerned, she drove down to check on her mother. Inside the apartment, everything looked undisturbed. Fresh flowers in a vase, a half-finished crossword on the table. But Maria was lying in bed, unresponsive, her breathing faint and shallow. Paramedics were called immediately. At the hospital, doctors struggled to find a clear cause. Her heart was weak, her vitals barely detectable. After several tests and hours of monitoring, one of the physicians gently told Elena, "I'm so sorry, she's gone." But something about that moment didn't sit right. The next 24 hours passed in a blur for Elena. Grief clouded everything. Signing papers at the hospital, calling relatives, arranging the transport of her mother's body to a local funeral home. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure. It all seemed tragically simple. Too simple. When the staff at the funeral home began preparations, one of the attendants, a man named Javier, with over 30 years of experience, noticed something strange. Maria's skin felt unusually warm. He paused. A minute later, he thought he saw her fingers twitch. He leaned closer and noticed a faint flutter in her neck. He called over his colleague. "Check this," he said quietly. Pulse barely there, but present. The room fell silent. No one wanted to believe it at first. Could the doctors have made a mistake? Was this even possible? Javier immediately called for paramedics. Something about this didn't feel finished. As paramedics rushed Maria back to the hospital, Elena's shock turned to determination. She refused to accept the finality of the previous day's diagnosis. At the hospital, Dr. Ruiz, a seasoned internist known for his calm and thorough approach, took charge of Maria's care. He ordered a full series of tests, EKGs, blood work, and continuous monitoring. Dr. Ruiz explained gently to Elena that sometimes, in elderly patients, vital signs can be so faint they're easily missed, especially if dehydration or certain medications are involved. "It's rare," he said, "but it happens. The line between life and death can be thinner than we think." Elena stayed by her mother's bedside, watching as machines beeped softly, waiting for a sign that Maria might awaken. For the first time since the ordeal began, hope flickered, fragile but real. What would you do if someone you loved was declared dead, only to be found alive? Days passed, and Maria remained unresponsive, her condition fragile but stable. During a quiet moment, Elena met with Dr. Ruiz privately, hoping for answers. That's when she learned something unsettling. The initial assessment of Maria's death had been made without some crucial tests. The hospital had relied heavily on a single rapid exam at the emergency room, complicated by an overloaded system and human error. Elena felt a surge of anger and helplessness. How could such a mistake happen? The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders. Had she missed signs earlier? Could she have insisted on a more thorough check? The situation was no longer just about her mother's health, it was about trust in the system meant to protect them. Elena realized that finding the truth was urgent, not just for Maria but for every family who might face the same terrifying possibility. As Maria's condition hovered between life and death, Elena faced a crushing dilemma. Doctors recommended keeping her on life support while waiting for signs of improvement, but the mounting medical bills and the emotional toll weighed heavily. Family members urged her to consider comfort care, fearing prolonged suffering. Meanwhile, a hospital administrator warned Elena about liability concerns and hinted at the risks of prolonged treatment in cases with uncertain outcomes. The pressure to make a decision was intense and relentless. Elena wrestled with her conscience. Should she fight for every precious moment, or accept the uncertainty and let go? The hospital was no longer just a place of healing, it felt like a battleground between hope and harsh reality. One evening, as Elena sat by Maria's bedside, the monitors suddenly flatlined. Panic surged through the room as doctors rushed in, fighting to stabilize her. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like Maria might finally slip away. Elena's heart broke, the weight of months pressing down like a stone. In the chaos, a nurse quietly slipped Elena a note, information about a specialist in geriatric care, someone known for diagnosing rare conditions often mistaken for death. It was a small, fragile thread of hope, but enough to remind Elena that the fight wasn't over. Though the crisis was real and the odds grim, that night sparked something deep inside her, a resolve to keep searching, to hold on just a little longer. With renewed determination, Elena reached out to the specialist, Dr. Alvarez, who arrived at the hospital within days. After careful examination and advanced testing, Dr. Alvarez identified that Maria had slipped into a rare condition called locked-in syndrome, where patients appear unconscious but remain aware. This explained the faint signs missed earlier and the near-death diagnosis. Slowly, with specialized therapy and patience, Maria began showing subtle responses, a twitch here, a blink there, that lifted Elena's spirits. The family learned to communicate through small movements, rebuilding a fragile connection that had seemed lost forever. Elena felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude, having fought through doubt, fear, and exhaustion. The experience changed her, teaching her the power of hope and persistence when the impossible seems real. Months after the ordeal, life in Puerto Blanco settled into a new normal for Elena and Maria. The small gestures, a smile, a gentle squeeze of a hand, became treasured victories. Elena took on the role of caregiver, learning patience and resilience she never expected to need. Their relationship deepened in ways that no one could have predicted, built on silent communication and unwavering hope. Yet, the shadow of those lost hours lingered, a reminder of how fragile life is and how easily mistakes can change everything. Elena often wondered if the system was ready to handle such rare situations better in the future, or if others might suffer similar fates unnoticed. If you found yourself in Elena's shoes, how far would you go to challenge the boundaries between life and death? Would you trust the system, or question it every step of the way? What do you think? Share your thoughts below.